Hey, it's your Origami here, welcome back to the channel, and we're back with more Duel Masters plays, and this will probably be the last meta relevant deck profile that I will do for this set, and that is going to be the Necra Grateful Life Deck. It's rated at a tier 2.5 and I agree with that so far. The deck's pretty similar to that tier 1 Necra Hyperspatial deck that we did do a deck profile on earlier, but there are some adjustments to allow for Grateful Life to be splashed into the deck. It's sort of Necra's answer to Ballcadeias, so it actually plays well against that traditional Necra Hyperspatial deck, but in a weird way it isn't as strong against the rest of the competition. This might be a quick one because there are many familiar cards. We'll do a discussion at the end for those interested, so let's just get into it. Of course, we'll start with Grateful Life since a lot of the other cards do revolve around supporting this effect. So we play 4 of Grateful Life. The Earthbreaker evolution evolves on a command or nature creature. When this enters the battle zone, you may put a psychic creature that costs 7 or less from the Hyperspatial Zone into the battle zone. And when this card leaves the battle zone, put all cards in your graveyard into your mana zone, and this effect doesn't increase the usable mana. And also Double Breaker. So the main effect about this is summoning the 7-cost psychic creature. The most common target would probably be Galaxy, the temporal immortal, and the body most commonly used to evolve Ballcadeias on. And the reason for the inclusion of Grateful Life is so that you can have an out even when your opponent plays Ballcadeias, unlike the typical Necra deck that relies on the hyperspatial spells to summon Galaxy. You can play Grateful Life into Galaxy into your own Ballcadeias, and it also synergizes a bit with Ballcadeias in a weird way, which is that its Leave the Battle Zone effect procs when Ballcadeias enters the battle zone and destroys everything including Grateful Life. You pretty much get as much mana as you will need for the rest of the game. Usually brings me to about like 12-15 mana. And as an evolution double breaker, it's also a good attacker depending on your playstyle, and it can be valuable. Okay, with that out of the way, we go on to the rest of the list. We have ramp in the form of 4 Faerie Life. And then we play 2 of this Future Blueprint, not to be mistaken with the Evolution Blueprint from the Diamond Cascade deck. It has a similar effect though. Shield trigger, look at the top 6 cards of your deck. You may reveal a creature from among them and add it to your hand. Then put the rest on the bottom of your deck in a random order. Now, because you need certain pieces in your deck to make sure that you can pull off the combo, this card just helps with the consistency a little bit. Next up, we play 2 of the Bronze Arm Tribe, more ramp of course, but in this deck it's also valuable as a nature body to evolve Grateful Life on. And then 2 of the Ochappi Pure-Hearted Fairy, which we did see in the Diamond Cascade video. This one is probably a bit iffy. It's also ramp if you have a card in your graveyard. The pseudo shield trigger effect, which allows you to summon it when a nature card is added to your hand from your shield, is beneficial, and I get that because it is fundamentally still putting a nature body on the board for Grateful Life. But I would say firstly, is it that reliable in a Necra deck unlike the almost mono nature Diamond Cascade deck? And secondly, when I compare this to Bronze Arm Tribe, it's also less consistent of an on-curve ramp, and what I mean by that is that Bronze Arm Tribe actually guarantees ramp on 3 mana, whereas you would have to have either played Faerie Life or Future Blueprint for this to be a ramp on curve. And I think that might be why they decided to split the difference, you know, to play 2 of each, 2 Bronze Arm Tribe and 2 Ochappi. But I guess this is another one where it's your own discretion. You can play 4 Bronze Arm Tribe if you choose to. And then of course we play 2 Purification Trap, the card that we see in every deck that plays nature nowadays. The standard answer to the 2 Romanov decks out there. Plus you do play Dravita to cycle it. Most decks that play it usually play 3 to more reliably see it, and you can tweak it as you see fit. Next up is a newer one. We play 4 of Ripple Autumn Beauty Fairy. When this enters the battle zone, search your deck for commands, reveal 1 and then add it to your hand. Then shuffle your deck. And also it has mana rebirth 7, which means that you can play it from your mana zone for 7 mana. It's a nature body, a good searcher that gets you Grateful Life, which you can evolve this into, and it's also a good searcher for that angel command that we will talk about later, as well as Ballcadeias. Next up, we have the Hyperspatial spell package. We have 3 of the Hyperspatial Dravita Hole, 4 of the Hyperspatial Emperor Hole, as well as 3 of the Hyperspatial Guard Hole. And these 3 cards pretty much gives you access to all the psychic creatures from that meta Necra list. After that, we play 4 of Cleansing Elemental, Shield Trigger, Blocker, Can't Attack Players, Metamorph. And the Metamorph effect is tap one of your opponent's creatures. So if you don't know what Metamorph is, Metamorph means that the effect is active when you have 7 or more mana. So if you have not realized yet, the deck is actually set up to deal with Ballcadeias by being more effective at summoning your own Ballcadeias and relying less on the psychic creatures. And this Angel command of course is a body to evolve Ballcadeias on, but overall it's also a good defensive shield trigger to be able to spawn a blocker and tap an opponent's creature as well. Continuing with the theme of shield triggers, we play 3 of the Holy Ore, the best defensive shield trigger, especially since, you know, your big boss monster is Ballcadeias, you can afford to play like less destruction or removal, so Holy Ore kind of complements it a little bit better. And then of course Grateful Life, which we've covered, and then to finish the deck off we have 3 of the Ballcadeias Overlord of Demons. Evolution evolves off in Angel Command or Demon Command. When it enters the battle zone, destroy all other creatures your opponent can't cast spells, triple breaker. Sweet and simple, big finisher, board wipe, spell control, which is very good against most hyperspatial decks in the meta right now. And with that, we're done with the main deck. The Hyperspatial Zone is a very typical list for the current meta. I'll just breeze through them very quickly. We play 1 of Cheval Temporal Demonic Elemental. We play 1 Dravita Temporal Pressure Elemental. We play 2 Galaxy Temporal Immortal. 1 of the Rumble Temporal Sage. 1 of the Black Gunvit Temporal Wicked Soldier. 1 Dia Zeta the Temporal Suppressor. And lastly, we play 1 Diablo Zeta Temporal Ruler. So nothing much to really talk about. These are pretty much the best psychic creatures you have exposure to with these civilizations. The only thing to note probably would be the 2 of the Galaxy, and that's because of how much the deck revolves around summoning Ballcadeias, so you don't want to be caught out. You want the opportunity to play a second Galaxy, especially if your first one has already been flipped, so that you can guarantee that future Ballcadeias. And on top of all of that, there's one card that you might want to consider. It was in a previous version of this deck, and that is Takasugi Giant. When this enters the battle zone, you may search your deck for evolution creatures and put up to 2 into your hand, then shuffle your deck. So this card allows you to put both Grateful Life and Ballcadeias in your hand, and then it sets up the curve super well as well. Because Takasugi Giant is actually 6 mana, and then 7 mana you have Grateful Life into potentially Galaxy, and then on 8 mana you have Ballcadeias. So that's a very smooth curve in terms of that. I like the card a lot and it would be super good against a passive opponent, but I guess people are considering that this would be one of the slower decks in the meta and will push you towards using one of the hyperspatial holes to deal with some aggressions on turn 5 to 6 instead of yet another setup card. But yeah, if you're missing, you know, some cards from this list, this is one of the cards that I would suggest considering as a substitute. And yeah, that's the deck. So like I said, this is Necra's answer to not be a dead deck against Ballcadeias. So it kind of plays well against that traditional Necra deck because of its capacity to play Ballcadeias more effectively and without spells. It however plays worse against most of the other matchups, mainly because it has a slower and weaker early game as it's trying to work towards that Grateful Life. It does have the cards to switch up and play like a hyperspatial control deck, but I would say when you do that switch, it kind of ruins your long-term game plan because the cards that you will end up charging in the mana are kind of cards that are crucial towards your long-term game, and because you don't have Prince Alvarado for draw, your hand dries up rather quickly compared to that traditional Necra deck. It's in a weird spot really where the deck that beats one of the best decks in the meta is not really a better deck overall, but this deck is definitely more fun than the version without Grateful Life, and it also doesn't draw dead against Ballcadeias. So I believe that some people would actually prefer to play a deck that has an out and doesn't just get shut down. And like I said, this will probably be the last meta-relevant deck profile I will do before the next set arrives. The only other 2 decks that are meta-relevant in my opinion are Treva Grateful Life, which is actually a better Grateful Life deck than this one, but it requires 4 copies of the Straight, and the other deck is the Dega All Yes, which requires 4 copies of the Master Weapon All Yes, and both of those cards I only have 1 copy of. And with the next set on the horizon, I'm planning to save up my coins as well as my Duel Master points for the next set, because when you take a look at it, DMPP 15 is actually tied to DM 39 in the OCG series, which is actually the end of that Shobu block. And I'm assuming that the next set will be moving into the DMR or the DMX sets, which is not only a big shift in the meta, but personally it's also the meta which I played the most in real life. So there is some nostalgia factor in that, and if I'm not wrong, there are data mine leaks and also teasers on the next set. I'll probably have to look that up. But my assumption is that the next set should cover DMR 01 and potentially DMR 02 as well, because of, you know, how DMPP 15 covers actually DM 01 to 39. So it actually overlaps a few. One set isn't directly equivalent to another one booster set in the actual TCG. So if you look at it, DMR 01 has a good card, Cyber End World, which is a card that you want in the long term, I believe. And if this next set touches DMR 02, there is a card that is meta defining, and that is Ryusei Kaiser the Eternal. It's a strange name, and actually in my memory I remember it being called Eternal Meteor Kaiser, EMK, which we used to call it. If it retains its effect, this card EMK will be in every deck that plays fire for the rest of the foreseeable future. Purely because of the possibility of EMK being included in the next set, I am saving my coins and my crafting points. And those of y'all who have played this meta in real life know that I'm not exaggerating the importance of this card. So to me, saving up for EMK is more important than exploring that last two decks. Unless somehow I manage to pull those decks from, you know, like the daily packs or whatever, then I'll probably consider making a deck profile on those. But since it's maybe probably about 2 weeks or 3 weeks before the new set is upon us, I will probably, you know, in these next 2 weeks be exploring some meme decks, or maybe I'll take a look at some All Division AD decks. If you guys have suggestions, let me know down in the comment section below. And also, you know, if you guys have confirmation on whether or not the Eternal Meteor Kaiser is included in the next set, do let me know. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it informative. If you did, do help me drop a like on it to let me know, and I'll keep making more videos just like this one. If you're new here, consider subscribing to the channel to stay up to date with more Duel Masters plays as well as other mobile gaming content. Forget about the notification bell, just subscribing would mean a lot to me. So alright, stay tuned for the gameplay as usual, stay safe, bye bye.
Sometimes I think of you. 없이 뭔가 좀 공허해. 날이 무뎌지는 감각에 어느새 건너면서 든 생각 없어 맘에 드는 사람 넌 나만이 컸어 그냥 고소 외로움 눈하면 불 붙여 지활과 탄을 붓고 서서히 태가네 다리 밑 주저앉아 순식간에 지나가 시간 그냥 what's up 후회할 순 없어 어지러워 외점 여러 마음들 흩어져 난 돌아가면서 기억이 하나씩 없어져 그래도 남아있을걸 너가 말들 난 안 잊을래 Pretend I'm fine and lover Then that would just make me feel翼で飛翔する翼で飛翔する翼で焼き付けYeah She said I won't pick back in a while. Don't wait. Already packed her bags, called the cab, made space. And she said I won't answer if you call me when you're lonely. I guess I let it go. It's too late. Just can't be how it's supposed to end up. It's not enough. Just let you go away. Like my friends think I should. Cause what if I just wanna be with you? I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do. Honestly, I can't remember if you love me. Or maybe I'm just feeling lonely, I don't know. Just let it go. Everything she wanted packed behind the pretty face. But I kinda hope he breaks. Together, but I can't believe I let you slip. I think about it 7 days a week, and this just can't be how it's supposed to end. Cause what if you should really be with me? I wonder what the hell you didn't see. But honestly, I can't remember if I loved you, but it feels like I did when I think about you now. What if I just wanna be with you? Oh, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do. But honestly, I can't remember if you loved me. Or maybe I'm just feeling lonely, I don't know. Just let it go. But what if you should really be with me? I wonder what the hell you didn't see. Honestly, I can't remember if I loved you, but it feels like I do when I think about you now. Cause you don't wanna give in. Sounds like we're just talking in riddles. 5 in the morning, all we do is fight. Thought you'd come and make it right. I need a pause from the battle, but I don't think you're saying you don't wanna get it right. I will leave it up to you. I will leave it up to you. Now I'm done down the line. Sometimes so we're texting back. But baby, don't you know I will come around and let you know I'm